We all have dreams, but not all of them come true. Many of us young weirdlings, when we were very little, had the same dream. And if you grew up a young weirdling, you realized at a very early age that you were different from everyone else, although maybe you didn't always understand how or why. But if you did, then perhaps you have the same dream, and this will sound familiar to you. But many of us growing up had this fantasy of being approached by a small group of strangely dressed people who may have come from some faraway land or some place that no one had ever heard of, or even being aliens from another planet. And they seemed to recognize us and would say, "Oh, wait a minute, you don't belong here. You belong with us. You're one of us." And although they were strange and unusual, there was something about them that we would find familiar. Because many of us would learn from a very early age that being different had its problems. In fact, very often we were treated differently by our friends and sometimes even punished by teachers or parents. And so very often we learned the hard way that we needed to act a certain way, which was not the way that we normally did. And although some people may refer to it as masking and others might call it closeting, it all basically means the same thing, which is don't act the way you normally would around people because it's going to draw undue attention to yourself. It's not easy being that proverbial square peg trying to fit into a round hole. And after a while, when you figure out that there's not a whole lot of square holes to be had, well, the only thing you can do is try to fit into the round hole. And you can learn to do it, not perfectly. I mean, you're never going to be that round peg, but if you knock off enough corners, you can learn to manage to slip your way in. And that's when the fantasy changes and you start to dream about being able to transform yourself, or even have the person that you are die and somehow be reborn as that person that everybody wants you to be. Because it's just so hard wearing the mask all the time. And it would be nice to be able to do all of that naturally without all the effort and the pain that goes into it. But the problem becomes that you can mask for so long that you actually forget who you are. You can lose your identity. And that's something that I'm very familiar with. But eventually you're going to want to know who you actually are as a person, and that's not easy to do. Asking the question, who am I really, can take a long time to figure out, especially if you've been masking for a very long time. Finding the answer to that question, it isn't easy and can sometimes take a lifetime. But it's something that I really want to know.